so excited too. It happens. They did their best prepared, and then something happened out of nowhere.
So you just have to practice to be okay when it happens.
May I have a glass of water?
A glass of water.
Maybe you're on set.
Okay. Abby, can you help me with water? Thank you. Ethical leadership. I need someone to cue me in, like now. Can you see me? I'm in. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today, and a special thank you for holding on, those who have been waiting online for us to get started. We're experiencing some technical glitches here, but we are back. You're welcome. You're very welcome to our Leadership Talk. This is a program that extends opportunities and spaces for young people to participate and engage in different topical discussions. And I'm excited for the topic that we have today. Yes, I'm here at Vijana Co, a non-profit that serves young people, and at the core of all the work that we do is youth engagement and participation. And our Leadership Talk is one of the ways that we do that. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, you're very welcome. And I'll just introduce the topic that we'll be doing today. That's ethical leadership and professionalism in the workspace. And my colleagues will just continue to build up on that conversation. I'll hand it over to Jacqueline Abo, my colleague in Mbali. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for that warm welcome. I am very happy to be at the Vijana call, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, that is good. So ladies and gentlemen out there, before Sarah comes in to share with us her insights, ethical leadership is not just about making rules and regulations. It's not just about following rules and regulations. It's about making principled decisions. It's about making principled decisions, inspiring others to do the same. It's about leading by example. It's like leading. It's a leadership.
Thank you all for those who have just tuned in. I hope you're ready to follow this conversation and just get the topic going on ethical leadership and professionalism at the workplace. Also, just to get us in the feel of Vijana Co and the work that we do. Our work is centered also on 3 key pillars, and one of those pillars is economic empowerment, the understanding that in order to thrive in communities and wherever we are, there's need for us to have a muscle of empowerment in terms of our economy, our economics, and how we can, our welfare, and how we can take care of ourselves in that line. And one of the ways that we do that is through our Young Professionals program that seeks to facilitate youth learning and engagement as they transition from school to the workplace, and what that looks like in terms of gaining experience and learning how to work together in different teams and in different contexts. That's one of our pillars. Second to that is creative organizing, which just focuses on using digital tools, media, and platforms of that nature for youth engagement. For us, it's an alternative means of engagement because that is something we are very That's where our heart is. The use of digital media, how it can be entertaining, but also educational at the same time. It's very key for us, even as we engage with young people, that we make sure that this is something that their heart can be into, but their interest is also in. And last to that is participatory leadership. Above all of this, for young people to be actively involved and just own the spaces that they have as leaders, and to see that they are making meaningful contributions. So to create platforms of this nature, like our leadership talk, where young people get the opportunity to engage in different key topical issues, to start those conversations. For us, our role there is just to trigger what those conversations look like, and use different platforms, use film, use digital tools, use media, and use different articles and writings to see how we can poke out different conversations from young people about things that are happening in their communities and things that affect them. That's a bit about Vijana Core. We are currently based in 3 regions in the country. The central region here in Mukono, where I'm also standing, and it also hosts our secretariat and our fully blown multimedia studio, where I'm also reporting from. Yeah, so this is where we are. We are also based in Pakwach, and each of these regions has a youth hub, which is a space of engagement. Back to what our core is, how do youth get involved? How do youth get engaged? And how can youth meaningfully participate? So here in Mukono, we are in Pakwach for the Westline and northwestern part of this country, and we are also based in Mbale for the eastern part of this country. And we work with youth, we work with youth groups, we work with organized youth groups of different natures, youth groups who are in music, arts, and the creatives in that area. We also work with youth in farming, youth in business. No matter what is bringing youth together, our heart is in how are they working together to see that they can bring a positive change in their communities. And yeah, this leadership talk is also one of the ways that we are doing that. It started out internally for us here as an opportunity for us every Friday to get to engage, whether it be an article, a podcast, in different topical areas. It could be emotional intelligence, could be leadership, different ways that we can build our muscle, because we found that conversations of this nature are points for us to keep building up on who we are and our growth individually and personally, but also they create a platform for us to tap into the different resources that are around us, the information that is around us, and also the different experiences that we have had. What can you learn from the leader that is right next to you? And do you identify as a leader? Do you identify as one in leadership? What does leadership mean to you? This is what our leadership talks have just come to demystify, to break that down and say, how do we make this a palatable thing, something we can all talk about, something we can all understand? Please comment down in the comment section and share with us. What are your thoughts about the topic that we are going to share about, ethical leadership and professionalism? What does that look like for you? What does professionalism at the workplace look like for you? It could be in the way that you dress. It could be in the way that you speak. It could be in the way that you engage with teams, in the way that you engage with each other. How are you being professional? It's from the simple ways that we can be professional every day to the what we would see as more complicated and complex situations where we get into ethical dilemmas, where you're in between a rock and a hard place. What would the choice be like for you? I hope that this leadership talk gives you the opportunity to just think through what your thoughts are about these different topical areas, and just dive deep into the conversation. Comment down in the comment section below, like and subscribe and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're all most welcome. And thank you once again for joining us. We look forward to what this conversation is looking like, and we continue to build up on this. We have more leadership talks of this nature that have happened in the past, and we continue to just delve deeper into them and the different topics that we have talked about. You can also just suggest for us in the comment section, in this topic of leadership, what do you feel as a young person is something that we can dive into? Is there a topic that you've been thinking about us having a conversation on? Because it's when we start those conversations and when we mention those topics of interest that then we get to find out where the heart of young people is. So just think about that. Share with us and comment below. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on our different social media platforms, and really get to engage with us and see how we can get more and more involved in the work that we are doing. Thank you once again for joining us. For those who have just joined in, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for coming through. Yes.
Ethical leadership and professionalism to lead in the workplace. And as we embark on this journey, we'll explore topics like building a culture of integrity, the role of communication in ethical leadership, and the impact
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jackie, and for that warm introduction. Professionalism and ethical leadership in the workspace can be complex, but it also can be very simple. I like to think about legacy. I like to think about relationships and purpose when you're talking about profession and ethical leadership. And taking it from the beginning, I also want to lay a bedrock of the fact that as leaders or as people in the workspace, we do not thrive, in our own cocoons, but you're relating with people. And these are people with a heart, with a soul, with a mind, flesh and blood generally. And so it matters how you treat people as a leader. And of course, you may talk about professionalism as the ability, how well you do the job that you do. So that is specialized knowledge of what you're supposed to be. So for example, if you will say that you know how, the body works and all that, or if you are a bricklayer, like you know the ins and outs of working with mud or soil to come up with a very perfect brick. So that is the competence, and that is, the specialized knowledge of the work that you are engaged in. And also, you can also go ahead to look at accountability. Are you accountable first to yourself, but also to the people that you are working with? And so when you are in relationship with people in the workspace, it is important for us to always remember that we need to be accountable. That if I say that I'm going to do this, it is what I will do. And if I say that I will deliver this within this specific time, I will do my best to deliver it within that specific time. And if I do not, then I come back to the person that I promised to do and give an explanation for why I was not able to perform to what I said I would do. That is accountability. And there's also the level of showing up, showing up because, and where it starts really is because when you go into the workspace, you sign up to a contract, and maybe it's an 8 to 5 job, or whatever it may be. And so that presupposes that you have given us word that you will show up. So part of professionalism, therefore, then comes to showing up. That every day when you wake up, You made a commitment that you will show up. So it also goes hand in hand into professionalism. And so we can stretch, how we define professionalism to a great length. And I want to anchor this conversation in the fact that it's about relationships, And for me, growing up, I know that people want to be treated well. And if you want to leave a legacy, you live it in the hearts of people. And that comes with how you treat them, how you talk to people. For example, if I'm working at the reception area, it's the way I receive the people that walk into this office that will make that difference. And so, Jackie, when you shared with me the write-up on what this conversation is going to be, there was a quote that it is not about the work, but how the work gets done, right? So when you think about professionalism and what sets apart a person who we say is professional from the other is really the competence with which they do the work they do, but also how they do this work, bearing in mind that there is a relationship. Relationships are always at stake. And I'm going to say this word over and over again intentionally, because at the end of the day, when we come to work, we are working for people, we are working with people, and we are working towards, contributing to community, building the institutions where we are, working, our purpose and all that. But the people, you don't want to come into a place and you're bruising people. So then that leaves a very important thing to always marry, marry your ability with the how, right? The how I walk into the space, the how I treat the people that I find in this space. Do I want to leave them, feeling empowered, or do I want to leave them feeling unseen? The people that walk into a space and you really feel that they have made you feel, little, they have belittled you, and for them, it's because, I am the boss, I am the best thing at, I'm the best at this thing, so I have no competition, I have no what, but yet when you are bruising and hurting people. And so the how is for me where I tie the professionalism to. So having competence with a heart, having competence with a smile, having competence with respect, having competence knowing that the legacy that you're leaving, the footprint that you're leaving is also empowering the other person. And so then the question of how you were raised, right, can also bear into this professionalism thing. And so, for example, when I was growing up, my parents would demand that I greet all the people I met on the way, at least to a stretch of 2 kilometers from our home. And today I appreciate that, because I walk into a space, I have to say hello to the person I meet. So if you have that, if you miss that upbringing, it's possible through development, through personal exploration and discovery, to then say, oh, actually, I think people read this about me, that I am disrespectful because I didn't say hello to them, or I didn't return a smile for a smile, or I didn't make someone feel comfortable in the space. How can I make this, work out for me? So that when I meet people in the workspace, when I meet people in the community, I am representing myself as the best version of who I am. But also, because when you talk about professionalism, you're also talking about the work environment. You're also representing the institution, the office that you work for. So that demands that you carry a certain brand of ambience. Yeah. So professionalism is really deeply rooted in the values, your personal values. And values, we can go on and on. We can stretch it, to a spectrum. It could be equality in a space, integrity. You talked a lot about integrity, is that what I do when nobody is seeing is the same thing that everybody else receives, that I'm true to myself regardless of if it's one person before me or 1,000 people before me. And honesty, transparency, accountability, those are many. So professionalism then carries these values at the core, that you walk in as a person with values, And many people want to work in places where they share values, right? So, yeah, where they share values, so that if the organization I work for, puts transparency or integrity or hard work or teamwork, then, and those are my values, that will be a very simple, that will be a very good workplace to work in. But in some cases, when you have different values from the organization that you, or the place that you work with, then it requires that you reflect and see, can I continue in this workspace if I feel that people are disrespected, or if I feel that there is a corruption of morality? And so that leads me now to the question of ethics, the idea of rightness or wrongness, and ethics, morality. Who determines what is right? Who determines what is wrong? And even as I say that, there's also the awareness that many things remain constant. For example, being kind, being respectful, those remain constant, right? Yeah, but also in the world that the world is changing. Technology is changing many things, and so even ethically, then every workspace needs to interrogate what is ethically right. Yeah, and when you think about the work from home, for example, when people want to work from home as opposed to showing up in the space 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, what does the ethics around that mean? And of course, the culture of the workspace. And myself, the people I work with, we progressively craft the culture of this workspace. And that workspace and that culture can be many things. It may be a culture of people feeling seen, or people being well, or a culture that values productivity, a culture that values hard work, a culture, and sometimes, of course, it can be on on the negative, where you find that people are stealing, people are backbiting, people are stepping on each other's toes intentionally, or using their words, giving compliments to dissuade or to disempower people. So also the compliments that we give in the workspace, that culture also is built by people. So then professionalism and ethics thrives in culture, it thrives in values, it thrives with relationship, because we are working with each other, we're working as a team. Just imagine as a bicycle, it has tires, it has nuts, it has many other parts, yeah? And without those parts, the bicycle cannot be. And yet each of those parts has to contribute their speciality, right? So the how comes from being, being watered, being acknowledging that people are different, acknowledging that people bring a different value to the table, and acknowledging that yes, you're the best thing that ever happened, but even the other person as well. So then, do you see them? Do you value them? Do you provide a space for them to thrive, just as you would desire that the same happens for you? So, as we go into this conversation, again, for me, professionalism is about leaving a legacy, and it's about purpose, and it's also about relationships and how you show up, right? To build relationships, to leave a footprint, and it matters even more than the competence, because you can always be better. YouTube, the internet is providing us many ways to become more competent at whatever we are doing. And I like the time of the lockdown, because it really showed that it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you have access to internet, you can get a skill in anything, right? But imagine walking into a room and a doctor doesn't care how you feel, and they have to do a very tight operation, and they do it without anesthesia or explaining to you how the procedure is going to be. You will leave that table feeling different. And yet when you're in the hands of a doctor that is caring, that will explain the procedure for you, will tell you that because this procedure is very, complicated, we're going to give you anesthesia and you will sleep for, 5 hours, and then when you wake up, this is what will happen. You will feel that you're in safe hands, right? And you will say, oh, this doctor is professional, I love this doctor. And the difference is how the doctor has handled the patient, right? So the same thing, I work in an organization, and it's really the same thing. The people that walk into that door, when we are working with young people, we want to show them that work is meaningful, work is a happy place to be. It is not a place where people should be stressed and worried about, oh, I'm going to meet my boss, oh, I'm going to meet this person who doesn't act professional, because they don't see the others. But it should be a place that everybody wants to work, because we've all understood the value that everybody brings to the table, and we want to be treated the same way we treat others, right? Yeah, so the competence, the relationships, the footprints that you leave, and your values really speak into what professionalism is.
High trust, low performance, or the medium trust, medium performance, or the low trust, higher performance. And most of it was actually concluded that most employees would want to pick someone who is high trust and medium performance, or even low performance, because performance can always be worked on, it can always be improved on, but trust, these are things that are values, people come with them. And talking about values, what roles do you think that values play in shaping ethical leadership, and how can leaders ensure that their values are reflected in their relationship, in their actions, in the things they do each day?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, see, values are a North Star, and I think about them as guiding principles. And I have not met a person without values. I would be very scared.
Yeah, scary.
And so values play a critical role in ethical leadership, because when you talk about values, it is things like I value teamwork, I value working with other people, and so that means that you recognize the uniqueness, the difference everybody brings to the table, and you see that value. So everybody that talks about teamwork, I believe, speaks to that sense of understanding, appreciating that we are all different, and together we make the work done very well. And when you're talking about honesty, people and honesty and trust, right? It's knowing that when the person will be truthful. These days people will tell you that truth is relative, but but if someone is truthful,
yes.
and you can count on their word, that's a very good person to work with. But also employers want to work people that they trust, right? And it could be trusting you with our resources, it could be trusting you with our finances, that when you have requisitioned to do work for $100, you will actually do that work with it, with that budget allocation. So trust. And if you're working with young children, it will be that trust that you will acknowledge, they're just being children, that you will acknowledge
you
their
can
spirit
take care
and
of
will
them.
not tolerate, their innocence and take advantage of, their vulnerability and all that. So then we can, you have to prove that we can trust you, and so we can leave you with children. So if you're working in communities, again, it is trusting that you walk the talk, right? And so that community members, when community members see you, they can trust the institution that sent you. So then trust becomes a very important and element in who you are as a professional. And so whatever it may be, whether it's integrity or transparency and all these things, they are very important. They're essential things, really. When you're talking about work, when you're talking about professionalism and work culture, and they help to build a culture where success thrives. Yeah, there is these values that build a culture where people feel valued. It is these values that build, a shared vision. Okay, a shared vision and a shared identity, and even the relationship with the work that you're doing. It is the values that we bring on the table, or the values that we share, that eventually help us to come together and work towards a dream or goal or an aspiration, whatever it may be. So values, we cannot do without them. And of course, we adopt values by relating, because of our relationship with people. And we sometimes also cheaper way, right? And as the institution grows or it evolves, again, they can take on many other values that speak to the work that they are doing, or that speak to the evolution that is happening. Yeah, so for me, they are critical, essential, guiding stars when it comes to work and community and professionalism.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, actually values are because even as a human being, you need values. That is why we are taught certain values. When we reach somewhere, we find something different, we are shocked, like, I'm not used to this. It all comes back to the core of being a human being, as much as a leader, as much as relating to people. Yeah, thank you very much. So, you've been talking about values, talking about, ethical leadership, behavior, trust, confidence, and all those things. Could you share a personal experience where ethical leadership, ethical decision making actually positively influenced the team and the organizational culture?
All right. So I believe I love to see people and to see their uniqueness. And so I rarely pass general judgment for an individual. And so I also supervise a team. And for me, when people are giving me feedback, I love that they give it to me. If it's positive feedback, of course, they can shout about it on a public speaker and all that. But if it's negative, or if intended to do something about something that is not right with me, I think it should be communicated to me personally, privately, right? So that's where I come from, and because that's what I desire for myself, I do that for the team. So sometimes, emails, right? Communication. I think we're going to talk about communication. People send a general email, and then you say, you should have done this differently on a public email.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, is this person, like the person you're telling, are they going to take it that positively? Couldn't I have inboxed them privately? And so one time I did that for a colleague. She sent a document that everybody, built in, fed in with their critique, which is good, and feedback. But what I did, I actually went into their private inbox and said, this and this could be done differently, and suggested, the many ways that you could improve the document. And then some time went by, and she sent me a WhatsApp message saying, thank you so much, Sarah, for that feedback that you sent to my inbox. I felt that message, I can sleep on it many days,
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, when we are praising people, it builds your esteem. It builds your confidence when you are being praised. But when you're giving, that negative, or, we call it criticism, quote unquote, it's good that you call the person to step aside, or go into their inbox or their WhatsApp and tell them what they needed to do better. I think when you do that, it also shows the other person that, oh, actually, this person values how I feel even before my colleagues. So I love to think about that, and yeah, it's one example that I can share now.
Wow, that's a good one. Eh? That talks also about emotional intelligence. You know, as much as you're giving feedback, there should be a level of professionalism that you think about the other person's feelings or their welfare. How will they feel? What is going to come out of this? If I just come and say, Sarah, I don't like the way you dress in public, there is a way it might disturb your self-esteem. So that was a good one to learn from.
Yeah.
And so, how do you think we would build, or an organization can build a culture of accountability where individuals feel responsible for their actions and they understand the impact it has on the organization's ethical standing?
Right. So from the start, I believe it's important that organizations or institutions or workplaces define what ethics is for them. So what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is non-negotiable, so that everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And I know that organizations have policies, but in addition to the policies, it's important that you have, physical interactions, call them conversations or meetings or reflection days, where these things are really talked about, broken down to everybody's understanding. And in the presence, like everybody should be in that room to know that, when we say right, this is what we mean, right? When we say late, this is what late means, right? When we say what? Being well, this is what it means. So that people are not caught on the offside of, oh, did not know that this is the culture of the organization. So I believe that from the start, leaders or supervisors or managers should make it a point to really break down what culture is, what is ethically right, and what is professional in that workspace. Because again, it is not a homogeneous, thing that when you walk into, I work with the mentoring and empowerment program for young men. So what you find in MEMPRO may not necessarily what is at the Yana core, right? And so our culture may not necessarily be the organization culture, right? So, and then in that organization, you have, intergeneration, there's an intergenerational mix. Some people are older, others are young, you have people who are coming right from university. So they, for you to be able to work, really, really well, you have to bring on the table this, person who has just come out of campus, and for them, their mind is not yet wired into this workplace where you have to clock in at 8, leave at 5, write requisitions, write reports, and all, and all that processes. So then bring on board the manager who's been there 10 years or whoever, and have a discussion and an agreement. And then the policies should speak to that. And then, of course, there should be reflections. So some people can do that quarterly, every quarter. They remind themselves, this is who we are, this is our culture, this is our moral compass, right? Again, because people forget, but also the work that we do sometimes can, it can be a lot. And so people can easily forget and need to be reminded, right? That is why we say that leaders are readers, because, we need to always be reminded. So it's that the reflection sessions should be encouraged, and reading. Sometimes we have value, we do not have certain values simply because of the level of exposure. So reading, exposing people to what is different is another way that we can build our organizational culture, or even our values, right? Our ethics, So reading, exposures, and all these things, and some of the ways that we can build our ethics at the workplace, and also the culture in the space.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, you are talking about, that people should be informed about the ethical standards in the organization, so in the institution, in their workspaces, which is very important, actually, because even the law says that ignorance is not a defense. The law has been passed. So it is up to you to find out which law is there, which one is working where. So sometimes also there is the issue of forgetting, but I think it's also important that people who work within spaces or institutions find out what are the cultures, what is the value system of this place, what are the values set, the principles that are working in this place. So that takes us to what are the strategies that should be used to address ethical lapses or misconduct promptly and transparently without, having people question and feel like treated unfairly.
Right, that's a very good question, and it makes me think about communication, good communication. And when you talk about communication, it's many things. It's the verbal communication, but it's also the written communication that could be the policies. And so one of the strategies to manage, issues when they arise is to have a communication strategy in place, that if a certain value has been misrepresented, this is the person that will handle the situation, and that person is known to everybody. I don't like to use disciplinary committee, but there's usually designated people in every workspace, and some people call them human resource managers, depends. So so communicate when something has happened, and people will either use email to inform the person who has acted below the standard, or sometimes you just call the person to an office and have a conversation with them to understand their mind on what they were thinking when they are trespassing a certain value or living beyond, over and above an organization culture. So communicating, but also communicating in an empowered way, right? So because you have a culture, then you also have to live to that culture. So even when you're apprehending, quote unquote, someone who has, it has to be in an empowering way, so that at the end of the process, this person doesn't feel guilty, but they feel like, oh, wow, I can do something about this. I made the mistake, yes, but I can do something about it. And they feel good that you've given them an opportunity to live better, or to live to the standard for which they are required. And then other people, the things that we talked about previously, having reflection sessions, those also help to remind people. Sometimes people are going astray, but when you bring them together in a reflection session to say, by the way, integrity, transparency, honesty, and all these things, teamwork is our values. It helps, to cut off the risks of trespass. So reflection sessions, and I've also had people giving awards. Haven't worked in a place where there's special awards for people who are excellent. Yeah, but I think they also work, and that you notice and recognize, right? The person who is especially kind, or that person who treats people very respectfully, or the person that smiles the most, or the person that delivers on time, timely delivery. So giving awards for those people could be an encouragement to the others that, oh, actually, when you do good, or when you behave in a particular way in this organization, there is a reward for it. And that reward really should be talked about by everybody, so that, again, transparency is promoted in that space. So I feel that everything that goes into either disciplining or setting the boundaries or defining what values cultures are, it has to be done as a team, right? So if it's about awards or rewards, the people have to agree that we shall give an award if a person exceeds this, this threshold. So that then they are not grumbling to say, oh, but why did you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there has
much.
to be a level of team engagement in all these things. And so what I'm also saying is the engagement of people, is very critical in setting boundaries and also helping those who have trespassed, come back on board. So that if I've been caught on the wrong, I'm not treated like a criminal, because I have been part of this team. So I need to be treated in a way that that speaks to that as well, that I'm also still, yes, I've done wrong, but centrally I'm still part of the team. And so I'll be handled in a way that is respectful, in a way that is empowering, and in a way that gives me an opportunity to make good or
better decisions.
Come back from, the wayward.
Yeah, actually, that is very true. That connects to the initial thing we were talking about on ethical leadership and professionalism. Like there are spaces, there are workspaces where leaders are very tough. Like there is basically no chance given to someone. If you make a mistake once, it's done. So that talks about it. There is a way that you can be approached when you have done wrong, especially if it's a first time or something you were not aware about. There is a way you can be approached. There's a way you can be talked to that still keeps your dignity intact. Now that talks about the story it connects to the story you were talking about on the feedback that you received when it was a negative feedback and then it was thrown into the public. So that is a good one. And thank you very much for sharing it. So as we are still talking about ethical leadership and professionalism, how do we navigate the challenge of balancing the interests of various stakeholders while upholding ethical standards?
Right. So that issue of navigating, it's just, I believe that we can center that in recognizing that we are all different, right? In as much as our organizations, holds these values and has this culture, you want to be open, flexible, and adaptive as well. Yeah. And I'll just give an example. If you are an organization working with young people, again, these young people do not present the same way. So
that is true.
Then, as people that work in this organization, you have to know that some young people are educated, others are not. You invite people for a meeting, others, some will show up dressed, proper, prim and smart and all that. Others will just come, putting on shorts and hair and all that.
And sandals.
Yes. Some of them speak the national language, others are not able to speak the national language. So what I'm saying is recognizing that difference is not a weakness, right? And that we give an opportunity for everybody to feel that they can be part of the organization. And of course, the organizations usually have designations of this is who we work with. We work with young people, but they have to be this caliber and all that. But in the event that something happens, I feel that people have to inherently know and acknowledge that we are different, right?
Yeah.
So even as we are all expected to speak English or the national language, the way I speak it isn't the same way the other person speaks it. So just having that understanding and extending grace to the other people is very important.
Okay. Wow, that is. I'm learning personally. I'm learning so much from the ethical leadership and professionalism conversation. There is a lot that is changing in my mind, So I'm so glad that this conversation, that I'm part of it. And I hope our audience, everyone is picking their own portion, pick what resonates with you, and at least learn something. When we come together like this, it's an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity to unlearn. It's an opportunity to relearn and every other thing, because we share experiences from different places and we hear from experts. So,
Yeah, and
Sarah.
Jackie, could I add to the other strategy really is being open to learning. I
Yes,
know that
please.
sometimes it sounds like cliche when we say that unlearning, relearning, and learning, but
Yeah.
essentially, really, it's about knowing that we are all in a journey, and
Yeah.
that the Sarah you have met today, you may not be the Sarah you're going to meet 2 weeks from now. And
That
so
is
it
it.
means that you also have to learn how to relate with that Sarah who is becoming or evolving. So as organizations or as workspaces, we also have to learn. And since the COVID, since the lockdown, many things have changed. So right now, people are talking about working from home. How do we support, for example, people to work from wherever they are? And today we're also facing a challenge of traffic jams.
Yes, a lot of
because,
it.
because, because of potholes and what. So then an organization should not be stuck into saying, for us we work 8 to 5, everybody has to show up
Yes.
on their desk. But if people are not producing 8 to 5 on their desk, and they can produce, and have great results from remotely, then why don't you then learn and put in place structures and cultivate new culture to enable that.
Oh, yes.
So a learning organization, the one that speaks to the evolving needs of their personnel,
Yes.
is a winning organization, right? Because today, if someone comes in as a fresh graduate from university, 2 years from then, they're probably becoming a mom, right? And so the
Yeah.
culture of the organization then needs to evolve to meet this person where they are, right? Are you giving flexi time for mothers to be able to nurse their children? Or are you static with saying, oh, this is our culture, you must be here 3 weeks after giving birth, or stuff like that? Or if people are doing, they are students, right?
Yeah.
They've gone back to school to take on, to become better at their work. What does the culture speak to that? So I believe that the strategy of being a learning organization and responding, right, to the needs of the community, responding to the needs of the people that are working with you, then is very critical. And yeah, providing feedback is also very important. People need to know, like people always need to hear back from whoever is in charge that this is what we are doing well and this can be done better. So the other strategy really is that then becomes communication
Yeah.
and providing feedback so that people do not feel like they're working in silos of silence.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
don't know that if I go and hit this road, like nobody will tell me, hey, there's a wall there, or yeah, so there has to be that level of communication that provides authentic and timely feedback. Yeah.
Wow. It's a great open ground. As long as someone is open-minded, they can pick so much from this conversation. And thank you, Sarah, for not being mean with the knowledge that you have. It's a good thing to learn from people who have experienced, like people who have been there before, when you talk about those experiences. So would you share with us a story of yours, or like a situation where you had to make a tough ethical decision that involved competing interests, and then how did you approach it and solve or sort it effectively?
Right.
Sarah?
Thank you very much for that question.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, of course, like in a workplace, it's not that everybody has to like you.
That
And
is
sometimes
true.
people will just, have their own opinion about you. And so I think one of that, I remember a situation that happened and people, were saying things about me that were not necessarily true. But what I decided to do was not to let that, think into my mind. So I remember having a meeting with all the members of my body and saying that what this person said about me is not right. But I committed to this workplace to do this A, B, C, D, and E. And when I had the opportunity to meet with my supervisor, I actually talked about it with them, how it made me feel. But I also, shared with them that regardless of what happened, I was able to continue with my work in this way. But sometimes when you're going through that situation, it eats away your emotional well-being and it make you slow down. You may become, derailed or whatever. And so supervisors then need to be ears on the ground and just being able to see how are people faring. If I've been an A performer and then suddenly I am performing at Z, really there should be a question on what is happening. And when you open up room for dialogue and conversation for people to come and talk about, the grievances or the issues that are happening at work, I believe that it helps. Yeah, so that is what happened to me. Like somebody was just really talking things that were not necessarily true about me. And at that moment, I did not have the confidence to walk to my supervisor and say, hi, this is what is happening. So, but I just went into myself to see how do I go around this without spoiling their name or without retaliating the same way that they were treating me. So for me, it was, again, sticking to the goal and trying in as much as possible to deal with my issues and present, fully at the workplace. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Talking about making tough ethical decisions. When we were growing up, there was a boy who was expelled from an orphanage, and then we are like, how do they expel someone from an orphanage? It's an orphanage. He's an orphan. It's confirmed. Why would they do that? And then later on is when we got to know that he was actually torturing and beating up other kids, and kind of molesting them or something of the sort. So they had to send him out. So sometimes the ethical decisions they may look contradictory until you get to the real point, like, okay, this was necessary.
Yeah, and when you speak about that, Jackie, you remember when I said that many times when providing feedback, I believe that it's important to do it in that's critical feedback, right? You provide it, like we don't all need to know that, like everybody in the office, that so-and-so did this and that to the detail. Yeah. So then ethical behavior then says we can punish the bad habits and leave this person intact, their dignity intact, right? So then it goes into how the communication. If everybody must know who did everything and how they were punished and all that, that will make the workplace very stressing.
Very unbearable, and it would break the trust.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. People would not feel that their, trust will be broken. Absolutely. I agree.
They would not feel valued. They would not feel like they are respected. It would personally, it would make me feel like, so am I not a human being like every other person who deserves to be respected, aside from the fact that I work for this organization?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a good one. I like how the conversation is going. Thank you very much for sharing those. And what initiatives would you implement to continuously develop and reinforce ethical leadership skills among your teams or your team members?
Right. So, number one, I think that leaders are stewards of ethics and culture in workspaces. And so it becomes important for them to actually walk the talk, right? And again, because if you are a leader, then we will look at what you do more than what you say. So the first strategy is for leaders to really espouse the values that, the organizational values, right? So that is the first strategy. So leaders to lead by example. And then the other thing I will refer to, again, what I talked about is define, right? Make clear the organization culture. What is professionalism in this workspace? What is ethical in this workspace? Define it. And then in addition to the defining it, write it down, right? I love it when organizations have written culture. That for us, at lunchtime, we eat together, or every quarter, once in a quarter, we have a social night. Like, it's known. So then people can plan their programs or plan their work around those things, and they become part. They don't come as by the ways, right? Because they are written, they are known, and they are well defined. And then the other thing is to commit to a learning process. Because, and we learn in many ways, really. It could be, maybe you want to learn about transparency, or you want to learn about integrity. So you could just find another, a similar, another organization that you feel holds that value or lives that value, and ask them to mentor you, right, into that value or into that culture. Or it could just be that you have picked a book or a series of books that speaks to that value or that culture that you want to take on, and then be able to read together and grow together, right? So learning and opening up as many learning, platforms as possible, podcasts, YouTube channels, many things really. Attending leadership talks like this that Diana was organizing is a very important thing in building strategies for an ethical institution. And then the thing is coaches, mentorship, coaching, and discipleship is the other thing that sometimes you need someone to hold your hand, right? And so when you subscribe or when you give yourself to a mentor or to a coach, it helps. And that could be for everybody. And the coaches could actually be within. So maybe for the people who at different levels of management or leadership, you could find people who are mentoring them within the organization. And then for maybe the leaders, they could find coaches out of the organization. And so that everybody is continuously growing, and everybody is continuously aware of what is changing within the organization and how or what needs to change within the organization, right? So if it is using technology, right? Some people value technology, and so that means that everybody has to be technological adept. And then that again goes to providing resources for staff, to be able to learn. So if I am in the communications department and I'm not able to do an exercise, right? It doesn't hurt the organization to sponsor me for a 2 weeks or 1 week, workshop to upskill myself. Yeah. So I feel that allocating budget then for employees and staff members to advance their skills or to advance their abilities within the organization is of greater advantage actually to the organization. Then you'll be able to meet the people, communities that you serve, because even your staff have been well catered for, and there is a platform, there is culture for them to grow. So that if I've spent like 5 years in an organization, I'm not the same person that, came, without skills, without this and that, whatnot. Yeah, so allocating budgets, like really, for staff to advance in their skills and abilities then becomes a crucial thing. And then the other one is on wellness, right? Wellness and well-being of staff. It contributes to a culture of, like you thrive when you are well. So people should be able to interrogate how the space that they work in makes them feel, how it supports them, how it enables them, right? What wellness in that organization means. And it could be different things, right? It could be that the chairs we are using are not supporting my back well, and then I start complaining of backache and whatnot. I will not be, you will require me to be professional, but I will not be able to.
That is true.
Because my workspace is contributing to my, mental or whatever. So wellness is extremely important, and I feel that as we advance, it has been recently, newspaper headlines have come up to say that maybe like 30 or some % of Ugandans are mentally unwell. And we should be able to look also, because people spend a lot of time in the workspace, right? You spend the whole day in the workspace. And so if this workspace is not enabling you to thrive mentally, physically, and, socially and all that, then it will be hard to say I'm professional. Yet I feel that true. The organizational culture is eating me up, right, to the depth of my soul. Yeah, so cultivating a culture of wellness and well-being for employees and staff then becomes a critical thing as well.
Wow. That opens my eyes to a number of things. Like, we just had a leadership talk previously on emotional intelligence, mental well-being, like mental health at workplace. And surely you can see that there is, because we spend most of our awake times at workspaces. So it's very, the wellness, when it comes to welfare, the welfare is not, it's not just about the payment, the money someone's getting, the promotion. It's also about the relationships people build at workplaces. It's also about the kind of space, it should be a space that encourages someone to thrive. If we are going to follow the ethical standards, we are going to mentor or coach ethical leadership and professionalism at the workspace. It should be a space that enables it, and not the other way around. And that goes, it's a whole big topic, because we could talk about how are people encouraged, when it comes to that, how do they encourage people for living or for working according to the ethical standards. What you were talking about earlier, like appreciation, like appreciating who is the kindest person, who is the most empathetic person at the end of the year. And these may seem like, well, they are not really professional because they are not work. It's not about goals. It's not about what the person has achieved. It's more about, those are, people would say those are personal things, but these are very important. So maybe you'd tell us also something else, like in what ways can leaders address the unconscious biasness and ensure fair and ethical treatment for all employees? At workplaces, we would say some animals are more equal than others. There is that saying. So to avoid that biasness, we will say some people are like this, some people are like this, or this is so and so, like to make it a place that is uniform and everyone is treated equally.
Thank you. That's a very complex question. And the way I want to answer it, number one, is value, right? So at the workspace, the person who works at the reception has that value that they bring to the table, that without it, the person who is in the management team, right, will not be able to perform to their optimum level.
Yes.
So then when you look at value as opposed to positions, then you will be able to ethically manage, right, people. Because then you are seeing the value that this person brings. So you will not treat them just like the gatekeeper, for example, or you will not treat them like the office administrator, but you will treat them as that person that allows the other team to perform at their optimal level.
Oh, yes.
So then that means that leaders really have to redefine how they see their employees, and to reschool, like to relearn, to reschool yourself and learn certain biases, right? There are some places where certain people are treated like almost unhuman simply because of the position they hold, and that is very unethical, right? Because at the end of the day, I come into this space as a sister to someone or a brother to somebody. I come into this space as a parent, you know, as a father or whatever. And so this, when I come into your, you know, your workspace, it should not then define me based on the position that I have, but on the value that I bring to the organization. Because without that value, people will not be able to gel. People will be multi and over-tasked. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think the beginning point is for leaders to reconscientize themselves on how do I define the role that people play, and then of course remunerate them accordingly and treat them as equal, even if our positions are different. But the fact that you're seeing a whole human being then will translate differently in how I am treated. And then the other thing we can do is sharing power. And this can be done in many ways. Giving people an opportunity to give you feedback on how they experience you as a leader, right? Because people experience us. They experience, when I show up in a place, they will experience me, right? Whether I am warm or whether I'm cold, whether I am bossy, they will experience that. So I feel that leaders should provide an opportunity for people to give them feedback on how they experience their leadership. So that then you do something about it. And this is not to make the workplace, you know, a place that, you know, but empowering other people, seeing other people as equal human beings with value, right, that they bring to the table. So provide feedback, give people opportunities, right, create platforms for people to give you feedback about how you lead them or about how the organization is going, and to also build the organization vision together, right? Because it's one thing for you to think that we are going to Ginger when the rest are going to Makere.
Yes.
So there needs to be a connection in how the directions that you're taking. So people should contribute to the team definition of what is it that we're aspiring for, where are we driving to, and how do we get there, right? So if everybody feels that they are part of that journey and they are part of their conversation, I believe that they will be their best and they will do their best. Because eventually at the end of the day, they feel that they are valued, they feel that they are seen, they feel that they are recognized for whatever that they are doing or bringing on the table.
Wow, that's a good one. It's been a good conversation. So our online audience, we want to give some attention to you now and maybe taking some questions. We've come to the third segment of our discussion. We've heard from our guest speaker, and now we want to hear from the audience. What is your view? What do you think? Do you have a question that you want us to answer? What is that thing? What is your view on when it comes to professionalism, ethical leadership? What anything, you can talk about anything, any challenges, whether it's young people, whether it's workplace, whether it's real life, you can share with us your questions. So the online team, please, you are welcome. Your questions are now welcome. Online team. Okay. There is no question right now from the online team. So there is someone that has a question here. This is from Aaron. The question is, how can we make leaders more ethical, assuming that we feel that they should be? How do we make leaders more ethical? Yes, Sarah. There are two questions. Let me read the second one. I'm thinking maybe you'd answer both of them because they are related. The second question is, in what ways can an organization impact upon an individual's ethical action? Yeah, those are the two questions. Sarah, you're welcome.
All right. First of all, like I said, that leaders are stewards of organizational culture and organizational moral. So first place, that people will be looking to see how is that a leader carrying themselves. So then the onus is on the leader to espouse the values of the organization, to walk those values, and to give the confidence to the people that they are leading that this is not just a paper that we profess, but it is a walk that we have chosen to take, and we take it very deliberately. So every leader then has to call themselves to a high level of living the culture, or living the values, or living the professionalism that they would want, their team members to walk. So that you are the first, signpost that if you're talking about teamwork, that everybody sees that actually for every, of course not for every decision, but decision making is participatory, or you're giving people opportunities to contribute to how the work is dreamed and how it is implemented, and that you're open and you give feedback. So when people see that, I feel that sometimes naturally then they want to emulate it, right? And if they feel that the leader is honest or the leader is accountable, there's a way then it infiltrates the other team members. So the answer to this question mostly bears on leaders. Let's leave that talk, right? And let's be examples as leaders to our team members. But what the team members can do about holding leaders accountable is using the different channels, feedback channels in the organization to communicate back that we feel that, this organization has this value. And of course, how you do that matters. You don't want to be outed or treated harshly because of the feedback that you give to your supervisor. So there has to be a level of discretion on how you do that. So, but yes, using the feedback channels to kind of fill in because sometimes people also do things unknowingly, like sincerely, and feedback can help. So, and that feedback can be passed through the HR, or maybe through the board, or through a certain way. And hopefully when it reaches the supervisor or the boss or the manager, then they act on it, and to make themselves better, but also to make the team better and the organization better. And then the question in what ways can organization impact? Again, it goes back to the fact that we spend a lot of time in our workspaces, right? And so that in itself will spill off. So if I am working, for example, I work in a very good space where people are treated, with utmost, value. There is feedback and there's all that. And I think I carry it a lot in my private life, right? And because for me it is good, I carry it in my private life. So the thing of not talking on people or disrespecting people because of the position that they hold, or giving opportunity for feedback on and receiving feedback, okay? And
Yes.
receiving feedback. It's now an integral part of me to know that because people experience me and they also experience others, they should give feedback where they feel that maybe I stepped on their toe. And that when that feedback is given, I take it in good faith, and instead of backlashing on them, I actually work on myself to make it to make it better for everybody. So in many ways, organizations actually, your place of work impacts a lot in your view of life, you know. It impacts a lot in how you treat people. It also impacts a lot in the things that you do in your private, what you prioritize again. Yeah, so it does so in many ways. And so you can choose, but you can also choose to say, there's that possibility that because you spend a lot of time interacting with these communities and with these people who behave a certain way or treat the work and people a certain way, somehow it will have, you know, a ripple effect on the individual.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of the discussion. And I'll give Miss Sarah, our guest speaker, to say something. Tell us your last words. Maybe there is something you missed out. Please, you're welcome.
From the person that met me down, you know, at the stairs and how I was treated, oh my goodness. So I kept telling everybody that this place is wonderful and you are doing an amazing work with the young people. The media team and this studio, oh my God. Flowers to you. And I hope that this talk will go a long way in making our community a better community.
Thank you very much. Thank you for appreciating. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, our audience, for being part of this leadership talk. Thank you for being part of the discussion. Thank you for those that follow through every discussion that we have. We are so grateful and glad to have you join us on the ethical leadership and professionalism in the workplace. Join us next time as we continue to explore important topics that shape our professional lives and leadership journeys. Until then, remember to lead with integrity. Jacqueline Abo. Good evening, everyone. Over to you, Gloria.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you for moderating the conversation. And I would like to also send special thanks to Sarah for just the wealth of knowledge and experience and ease with which she has shared the message of professionalism and ethical leadership. I hope there's something that you have taken home. I think for me, it's the idea of emulating what we want to see and how I am part of the culture of professionalism in the workplace that I am in. So I'm just thinking about how, just moving forward, how can I be the example that I hope to see, and how can I start to emulate those good practices, to have that good balance between what my values are and what the organization's values that I work for are. So I wonder what your thoughts are. Please continue to comment down in the comment section below, like the video, share it with your friends, your colleagues, family. There's a lot to learn from this. We do appreciate you sticking around and seeing it through. Thank you for your patience and for being part of this conversation. Continue to engage us via our social media platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Send us a text, send us a comment, share this content to your friends and family, and also to those at your workplace. This could be a conversation starter for some of you. You never know the benefit of starting a conversation like this. Thank you so much for joining us for our leadership talk once again. See you again very soon for the next episode.